Hey guys, I'm ready for you. So I didn't get to go for the printer ink again this morning because we just ran really late, fortunately. Tomorrow I actually supposed to go in town for like 8 o'clock, and we'll try and pass it after. So hopefully by tomorrow we have fresh printer ink in the printer across here. Printer across here has been kind of behaving, although yesterday and Matthew was kind of not behaving as well. So, yeah. All right. Okay, we'll start momentarily. Let's wait now 1 or 2 more people to jump in each. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Hotter than like less cool. All right, I'm 26 now. All right, so ladies and gents, welcome to exam season. By the way, we are officially in May. The exam is Monday. The exam is Tuesday. Today is Thursday. All right, so we know the situation. All right, let's just take a bit of a recap of the schedule. What's going on here? Hold on. All right, okay, yeah. Right. Yeah, so we are here, May 1st. So we're doing some errors today, some budgets tomorrow. Saturday is stock valuation, Sunday is payroll. Most likely we'll have these sessions. I only say that because I had to make sure I have assistance from my wife for childcare for the 1 to 3 on the Saturday because we have until 1 o'clock here. And the Sunday, I'll see if my parents can help out. But yeah, and then of course Monday we good to go because Monday's a regular. Well, when I say regular. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, Monday's the last day, and we have some ratios planned for that day. Right? So that's the plan. Today I have I had to postpone the end of my Cape Accounting Unit 2 crash course because yesterday was my wife's grandfather's funeral, so we had that. Started class a bit late, but we got through. We had to get through. It was the end of bank recs. We did most of the most recent questions, barring the May 2023, but you could always check that on my channel. That's not a problem. Right, so we want to knock off errors today, which includes regular error correction, suspense accounts, and the correction of net profit. All right, so I'm basically going to pull from the crash course stuff that I did because I found it worked kind of okay then, so hoping it works well now. So we're going to do some of the older questions first just to get a feel for what's going on, and then we are going to do some of the newer questions, right? So of course I have those things already prepped. It's just to send, right? So online people, you will see that PDF here is the one that was on the screen just now, the 2012 to 2002. Right? We mightn't get to do every single question, but we don't have to do every single question. Right, so pre-20, no, not this one. Obviously, that one is open already. All right, 2020, yeah. So the 2020, we had 2020, 2021, 22, twice in 23, and then 24 and 28. So mainly Jan. So error correction has only come in May in 2023 for this decade so far. So you never know exactly when they're going to bring it or how they're going to bring it. So take a look at the different ways we could do so. Right. Also, my Google Meet people, what I'll do is I'll send you guys a PDF with like a fillable journal format if you want it. You don't have to use it. Okay. Right. I guess I'll send that to you in a little bit. It's still kind of populating inside the what you call it, folder. All right, but I guess I'll take my role in the meantime, right? Okay, cool. So we have, all right, so and this is here, IS is here, this is Yuri, Kelsey not coming on. Yeah. All right, so Marcus here, Matthias here, the one island, PH here, Sequoia Moon here, Valentino here. Okay, cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, no problem. Rohan. Yeah, it's natural to forget stuff as you go forward. It's called constructive interference, but don't worry. You just have to keep revising. TikTok has plenty of tips on how to revise. You can always Google it or check out some YouTube tutorials on how to learn. Learning how to learn is a skill. All right. Okay. Right. So, folks, we're going to take a bit of a crash course approach to the error correction today, right? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's see. Will the printer behave? Should I even bother to get it to try? I don't even know. Current page. All right, cool. All right, so let's just see if the printer cooperates and gives you guys just 6 quick copies there. All right, but while we're waiting now, let's take a read. So V. Cheeseman is preparing his summary accounts for the month ended 31st August 2011. He finds the following errors which may or may not affect the summary of the bank account entries in his cash book. Okay, so we have 3 errors here. So what we're going to do, as we go through them, we're going to talk about them and how to treat with them one time. All right, and what I will do actually is I will pull this up because we do have to see more than one error at a time. All right, let's see, hold on, how many? As 1, and it stops, of course. All right, anyhow, it's quite visible here. So the first error reads as follows, right? So it's, okay, trying to highlight it. Hey, more printing? All right. So a purchase of 303 paid by check was recorded in both accounts as a purchase of goods valued at 330. Okay, so quick question. Was the figure used the correct figure? Yes or no? No, it wasn't. Was it? So relative to the correct figure, was the figure that was actually used too high or too low? Too high. So, hey, I did. Okay. So how do we fix something if it's too high? Do we increase it, decrease it, or leave it alone? We have to decrease it, right? But let's take a look and see, right? So what I like to do with errors is I at least like to try and show the actual double entry that happened in T accounts and illustrate there how we correct it. Because other than that, trying to talk through the debits and credits could be a bit confusing, right? It's like how some people feel about mental math. Some people like it. Even after, it could get a bit difficult. Of course. All right. So let's see. So the purchase of goods paid by check. Okay, so when you buy goods, paying by check. All right. So money's coming from the bank. So what's the double entry have? Credit where it's coming from and debit where it's going. So credit where the money's coming from and debit where it's going to. All right. So money's coming. So if you're paying by check, we're purchasing and paying by check. Money's coming from what account does check affect? Check affects bank. So money's coming from bank. So we're going to credit bank. And it's going to do it. It's going to pay for the purchases. So it's going to purchases. So you credit where it's coming from and you debit where it's going. So how much money is coming out of bank? It's supposed to be 303, right? And what is it going to do? It's going to pay for purchases, right? In the purchases account, right, 303 is being purchased and paid for by bank. So this was the correct entry that should have been made, right? The picture at the top is blocking the words. There's not much words there, to be honest. That's about it. Yeah. Right. So, what was the actual figure used again? 330, right? Right. Now, this, by the way, you all do have to drop the accounts when you're doing error correction. This is just me being illustrative, right? However, if you find that doing the T accounts helps you to see what went wrong and how to fix it, then by all means do it. Just know you probably mightn't get any marks for it, right? Okay. So again, quick question: was the figure used the correct figure? No. Was it too high or too low? Too high. How do we fix something if it's too high? We decrease it. Now, in this account here in the bank, right, the entry has been on the credit side. So the credit side is too high. So the credit entry is too high or overcast. Remember those words? Overcast, overstated, sometimes oversummed, something they could use as well, right? All right. So if it is too high, we have to decrease it. But here the question: by how much do we have to decrease it? So how we assess that is we look at the figure that was actually used, 330, so the actual figure, and we look at the correct figure that should have been used, 303, and we simply find the difference, right? So 330 minus 303 is 27. So this is the amount that will be used in the correcting entries. All right? Right. So we have a credit entry that's too high. To decrease a credit entry or to decrease a credit balance, you have to go on the opposite side. Remember, in T accounts, we don't use negative figures. We don't subtract stuff really and truly. In order to reduce something, we have to go on the opposite side of the T account. And what's the opposite to the credit side? The debit side. So you go on this side, you put 27, right? And you will actually put purchases here as well, right? Reason being is because in the purchases account, right? So hold on, I'm just going to put these in a kind of yellow to show that they were the incorrect entries, right? Okay, right. Now, in the purchases account, there's a debit entry that's too high. It was entered as 330 and should have been 303. So it's overcast or overstated. By how much? By the same 27. So we have a debit entry that's too high. To reduce a debit entry or to counterbalance it, you have to go on the opposite side of the T account. The opposite side of the debit side is the credit side. So 27 will go here and you'll put bank because that was the other account affected, right? and we'll put these in the in a kind of green. Well, maybe a blue, right? Right. So what we did here to correct this error was we debited bank and we credited purchases. Right. Now, when you are correcting errors, you actually have to use your general journal to do so. Right. Now, your rules for using a general journal is that your debit entry or entries for any transaction must come first, and your credit entries will follow and be slightly indented. Let me explain. So to correct this error, we have to debit bank. So you put bank first, and you put how much you debited bank for, which was 27, right? And the credit went to purchases, right? So you put purchases, sorry, right? Same 27. Right? And unless they say to omit the narration, you need to put one, right? Now, this was to correct overcast. Well, actually, it's an error of transposition. All right. Now, I'll talk about the types of errors just now, but what's more important is how to spot an error and how to fix it. All right. So, generally speaking, the rule of thumb is that whenever you have errors, it means something wrong was done, and most likely something right was not done. So, what you have to do is undo the wrong and do the right. Okay. Googles. Oh, thanks very much, Googles. Right. That's an interesting name, by the way. On YouTube. Cool. Yeah. So the first entry, right? First entry is to debit. So the first, sorry. So this first error, to correct this particular error here, you debit bank for 27, credit purchases for 27. Right. Okay. So I asked Matthias and Sequoia, if you guys are good with that, just give me a quick G in the chat, please. If you need me to re-explain, give me an R. Gonna drill. All right. And of course, I mean, all questions are, well, all relevant questions are this is the May 2012 paper. I just taken pieces of different paper. Right. So how come in 27 instead of the correct version? Right. Because we already have the 330 inside the account. All right. We already have the 330. So instead of right. So one other thing you could do in error correction. Do error on one. Right. So the longer way to actually fix this error is to do what I said, which is to undo the wrong and then to do the right. So what do I mean by that? So the original entry that was made, the original incorrect entry, was to debit purchases for 330 and credit bank for 330, right? So another way you could go about correcting this type of error is to undo the wrong. So to undo means to literally do the opposite or do the inverse. So if we credited bank, hold on, who's that? So you're trying to pull this usually down to match territory. That's why you debited. Yes, Matthias, that is actually correct. Yeah, you're decreasing the value of the entries that we made. Hey, morning, Jordan. How you doing? Good to have you on. We're doing some error correction today. We have started too long, so yeah, I missed too much. So I just want to go over this one here for those who may have just popped in a bit late. Right. Okay. Yeah, Marcus, we're on the screen there. Right. So again, we have an entry here, right? Which is, sorry, 1 second. Oh, right. Yeah. So we have an entry here where we purchase goods paying by check. But instead of putting 303, which was the correct figure, we put 330, right? So right away we could see we used the wrong amount. And the amount we used was too much. Rohan, what I have there is good enough. The control accounts is one of the first videos, but it's pretty good. And manufacturing, yeah, I don't want to update anything there. So you could use those, and they should work very fine. And all the possible solutions are there as well, from 2008 to 2023. Right, yeah, no problems. Right, so like I was saying, so when we record a purchase, of goods paying by check, you have to debit the purchaser's account and credit bank. Why? Because money's, what's the double entry hack? You credit where it's coming from and you debit where it's going. So money's coming from the bank, so that's why we credited bank, and it's going to pay for the purchases. So we debit purchases. So you credit where it's coming from and you debit where it's going. Right? Okay, so this was the entry that was made but as we know, it's incorrect, right? So what we did just now was we used, right, the more succinct or shorter version, which is basically you just kind of you're adjusting the entries that were made down by the amount of the overstatement. What I mean by that, we recorded 330, but we should have recorded 303. So therefore, the actual figure used was too high, and the amount by which it was too high is $27. So what we do to reduce the credit entry or to counterbalance it is you debit for 27 here, and to reduce or counterbalance the debit entry, you credit for 27, right? Or that's the shorter way to do it and the way that's usually taught. The other way to do it, which is the longer way, which some people like, is, like I said, to undo the wrong and to do the right. So how do we undo a credit? By debiting the account, right? And how do we undo a debit? By crediting the account. No, next week, Monday is accounts. From Tuesday, we binging, man. Like I was saying yesterday, I don't expect anybody who doing PoA to get here for 1 because the exam is 9 to 12. And I'm pretty sure it might have a little stress out after. So I'll expect any PoA people at 4 o'clock if you come, right? Yes. Right. So yeah. So what we did here, so we'll put these here in. We'll put these in green. Right. So the green entries there just undid what the incorrect entries, right? But when you undo the wrong, you still have to put in the correct entries. The correct entry that should have been made was, yes, a credit to purchases, sorry, a credit to bank for 303. That says purchases, right? And then a debit to purchases for 303, which says bank, right? So the ones in the blue were the correct entries that should have been made, right? Right. So in this longer version, what we did was the entries, the yellow entries were the actual entries originally made, which were incorrect. After the yellow, we did the green to cancel the yellow. So at that point in time, the debit and the credit side entries were equal, so they canceled each other off. And then thereafter, we did the blue entries, which were the actual entries that should have been made initially, right? Yeah, if in the general journal, what you actually would do, right? So check it for bank, we debited bank and then credited again. So you have 2 sets of entries to do here. All right. Well, let me see if I could actually just put that on, right? So the first set of entries, which would be the green, which would be to debit bank for 330, and then credit purchases for 330. And then what we would do is the correct entry that should have been made would be to debit purchases and then to credit, hold on, 1 second. All right, to credit bank. For how much? 303. Right? It takes a little more work, but some people like the longer approach because it makes a little more sense to them. All right? But again, what I would advocate is the shorter method, but whichever one you want to use is perfectly fine by me. But when I'm doing the corrections, I'll be referring and using the shorter method, right? But I will correct whatever you have. Okay, right. So like I was saying, we're gonna take off this, right? Take off this, right? And again, the more succinct way to do it is just to simply write down to decrease, or as I think Matthias said, to pull down the overstated value to the correct value. To do so, you have to technically decrease the incorrect figure by the amount by which it was overstated, in this case, 27. Right? So to decrease a credit entry, you'll debit the account. Right? The name that will go here is, purchases. And of course, to decrease a debit entry, you'll go on the credit side, put the amount by which you wanted to decrease, and then you'll put back. Right, so these entries here were the correcting entries. Right, so the debit would just be to bank for 27, sorry, and then credit to purchases for 27, sorry. Right, and of course, it should be a narration to correct an error of, right, in this case, it was transposition. That's when you mix up the digits. All right, because 303 and 330 have the same digits, they're just in the incorrect order. All right, okay. So I hope that clears it up for anybody online. All right. In class, people, how are you feeling with the first item here? Any questions? Anybody? Anything? Oh, all right, cool. Okay, so we're going again. Next one, it says a check for 467 sent to creditor R Sant had been recorded in R Sant's account only. Okay, so let's take a look. So if we send a check to a creditor, it means we are paying the creditor, right? Okay. So what's the double entry hack? Credit where the money is coming from and debit where it's going. So where's the money coming from? So it says a check was sent to R Sant. So the money is coming from bank. So in the bank account, you're supposed to put 467 and it's going to R Sant. So you put who it's going to. And then it's going to R Sant. So in R Sant's account, you're going to debit 467. Sorry, 467. And where's the money coming from? It's coming from bank, right? So this is the entry that should have been made. Now, what does the bullet point tell us? The check for that sent to that had been recorded in R Sant's account only. So it means that this entry here was actually not made, right? We forgot that. So this is what I have to call a single entry or a half entry, right? Because as we know with double entry, every debit is a corresponding what? Credit of equal amounts, right? But if we debited and didn't credit, that's ultimately going to affect the trial balance. In other words, the trial balance is not going to agree. It's going to be off balance. Now, to fix an error where we only have a debit or only have a credit, right, we have to go and do the other side of it. So if we are missing a credit to bank, guess what we do? We credit bank, right? But because we already debited R Sant, we can't go and debit R Sant again because that'll be doubling the entry in R Sant's account. So in this particular case, we need another account to facilitate the double entry to correct the error. That account is called the suspense account. Now, if we're crediting bank to correct the error on the bank account, every credit needs a debit. So the suspense account will be debited. Right, it'll say bank here, and here it'll say suspense. Right, so the journal entry will be to debit suspense account for 467 and to credit bank account for 467. Okay. To correct omitted credit to bank account. List of all the narrations. This would be infinite. Are you talking about types of errors? Yeah. Right, we're going to discuss the types of errors shortly, right? But here's my question. Are we okay with what happened here? Right, so in this transaction, in this error, what happened was only half of the transaction was entered. The debit was entered, but the credit was not, right? So what we have to do to fix that is to put the credit in the account that it was supposed to be put in. But the debit already exists. Now, these types of errors are only found after you draw up a trial balance, right? And when the trial balance is drawn up and it doesn't balance, we open this thing called a suspense account to make it balance temporarily until we find and correct the errors that cause the imbalance or disagreement, right? So if we are crediting the bank account to fix the error, and we know every credit is a corresponding debit, we need another account to facilitate the double entry. And that other account is the suspense account, right? So the correcting entry here would be to debit suspense account, credit bank account. All right. Okay, Google Meet. Right, so Matthias, Ayas, and Sequoia Moon, if you guys are good with that, just kind of give me a quick G in the chat. And Ayas, sorry. Good, right. Right, so I have 4 of them here, and I have 7, is it 11 then? Yeah, okay, 11. All right, cool, lovely. Right, we have one more error here, and then we will go to our next question and try to, wait, I didn't pull out the questions for you, did I? Crap. All right, small thing. Right, so the last error here, and then we'll discuss actually different types of errors, but we'll list them out. So a check received from C. Samna for $290 was debited in Samna's account and credited in cashbook. Okay, but if we receive a check from C. Samna and you follow your double entry hack, credit where it's coming from and debit where it's going. So who's paying who here? Are we getting money or are we paying money? We receive it, right? From whom? Samna. So money's coming from Samna and going where? To the bank account because we're receiving a check, right? So if you credit where it's coming from, you're supposed to credit C Samna. So in C Samna's account, you should see an item saying bank 290. And if the money is going to the bank account, you debit where it's going. You debit the bank account and put where it came from. Now, what does the rest of the bullet point tell us? It was debited in Samna's account and credited in cash book. So it was debited here and credited here. So what did they do here? They reversed the debit and credit. So the error, the entry that was actually made wasn't this one here. So we'll just grade out for now, right? Right, so that entry wasn't actually made. The entry that was actually made was, as it said, we debited Samna's account, right? And then we credited cash book, or well, in this case, bank, right? Right, so you debited Samna and credited bank. So this error is called a complete reversal of entries, where you debited the account that was supposed to be credited, and then you credited the account that was supposed to be debited. So how do we fix this? Well, how we fix this is like what I showed you up here for the long version, right? You have to, like I said, the basic thing I tell people is to correct this, you have to undo the wrong and then do the right thing. All right. So how do we undo a debit? So hold on, let me put this in the yellow color to indicate. Actually, no, is it different color? No, yellow, right? So how do we undo a debit? We credit the account. So to undo this item here, we have to, right? And then to undo a credit, we have to go on the debit side, right? Now, the green entries simply cancel off the incorrect yellow ones. So that's the first half of the correction process. Undo the errors. So undo the wrong. But then we still have to record the entry that should have been made. What was the entry that should have been made? We should have debited bank because we received money, and we should have credited Samna because Samna paid us, right? So what we're noticing here, to fully correct this error, which is an error of complete reversal of entries, to fully correct it, we have to debit and credit for how much value? What is this value here relative to the initial value? Double, right? Once to cancel and once to enter the transaction as it should have been entered, right? So what we'll do here is, again, we're going to debit bank for 580, 580 being 290 by 2, right? So 290, oh, 290 by 2, right? And of course, we're going to credit Samna, the same figure, right? And this is to correct a complete reversal of entries. Right? Now you could do the two entries in the accounts, but usually they don't ask you to show this, right? Usually you're not showing the actual accounts. Usually you are just doing the journal entries, right? Which is, like I said, why it's a bit difficult for a lot of people, because when you can't see the actual debits and credits and movements in the T account, and you have to imagine everything, it could be a bit difficult to hold all that and visualize all that in your head. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't try, but if it makes more sense, like if, for example, could you imagine trying to do like a question in math, in trigonometry with bearings, and you had no diagram, you just had the words? It's doable, but how much easier would it be if you had the diagram and you could see what it was doing? It make more sense, right? So same thing here. If you had the T account, you could see what you were doing. Just like yesterday with bank recs, yesterday Monday, right? Monday when we were able to see the cash book and the bank statement on top of each other or side by side, whatever, and we saw what was missing, right, between them, it was easier. When you just get this bunch of words and you had to know, okay, well, this stuff goes here, this goes here. Okay, cool. You could get to that point when you do enough of the ones where you have the actual visuals, right? Actual bank statement and cash book. And again, in the actual real world scenario, if you're doing a bank reconciliation, you're going to have access to the bank statement, right? Because who's going to summarize and say, okay, well, here what I did. I looked in the cash book and bank statement. I pulled out all the stuff that's missing. So now you do the bank rec. If I went through all that trouble, why wouldn't I not do the bank rec? Anyhow, different discussion. Right. So in this particular case, we have a complete reversal of entries. To fix it, you debit the account that was supposed to be debited, you credit the account that was supposed to be credited, and for double the amount. Once to undo the error, and the second time to put in the correct amount as it should have been put. All right, okay, Google Meet. Just give me a quick Genie chat, please, and thanks. If you are good with that. If you're not good and you need me to re-explain, by all means, give me an R and I will know how I can help, right? If you have any questions, please feel free, right? Okay, in class, people, are we okay with the item on the screen there? Any questions, anybody, anything, any problems? No? Okay. All right. So that was a little example question. So now I want to actually give you guys one to try. So what we're going to do here. Okay, well, we'll talk through this one, but what I'm going to do as well, let me see if I could actually print this one off for you guys and give you like a journal to use, right? Current page, we need 7 copies. 407, yeah, we need 7 copies. Not 67. 7. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, all right, no problem, John. That's fine. Sorry, let me just message a parent here who's asking a question. Okay, sweet. I should probably put that to print before I distract myself by answering the parent. Yeah, just pull out now and press OK. Hey, morning, Jaden. How you doing? Yeah, Jaden, we're doing some error correction here. We went through one as an example. We're going to go through our next one here, but I'm going to give you guys all right. I was supposed to send you guys a format in the chat. Of course. All right, guys. I was supposed to get that too. What? All right. Okay, sorry. Yeah. One sec. Okay. Hey, Paul, how you doing? All right. Hey, guys. So this is the, just your excuse. Could you just press OK on the printer? Yeah. Right. So Mr. Best extracted a trial balance on the 31st of July 2010, which failed to agree by 7,425. A shortage on the debit side of the trial balance, and the suspense account was open for the. Let's unpack that. Right. So again, I'm doing this for illustrative purposes. This is not something you would have to do. Oh, thanks very much, Aziri. Yeah. So this is not something you would have to do when you are correcting a question, unless it asks you to open a suspense account and open a trial balance and show the suspense account, right? So Mr. Best extracted the trial balance. So Mr. Best trial balance as at 31st July 2010. And it failed to agree by 74.25, a shortage on the debit side, right? Now the figures I'm going to put here, I'm just purely making up, right? These figures are simply made up, right? So the shortage was on the debit side. Right? So if we add up these two sides here, clearly we could see that there's a shortage on the debit side. And if we put the difference, right, which is the difference in the credit side and the debit side, we get 74.25. And we label that suspense account, right? No, I want an orange, right? Right? So that's what they mean, right? So the trial balance was extracted. It failed to agree. So before having this, the debit side and credit side totals did not agree. They weren't equal. And there was a shortage on the debit side. And a suspense account was opened for the difference. So you literally open the suspense account, you write suspense, and you put the amount by which the trial balance fails to agree. It's almost like balancing off an account. But remember, the trial balance is not itself an account. Even though there are debit and credit columns, you are not debiting a trial balance, nor are you crediting a trial balance. Right? And I'm emphasizing that because, in the Jan 2024 and 2025 error correction question, that's actually what they wanted it to put. Or so I was told, as in debit or credit trial balance. Or at least remarks were given if people put that. But anyhow, all right, we'll move on from that. Now, it says a suspense account was open for the difference. Let's take a look. Now, it says, just one quick second. Yeah, so it says in August, the following errors were discovered. Right. Okay, let's take a look. So it says the sales day book has been undercast by 4,100. All right. Now the sales day book is also known as the sales journal. The sales journal is a book of original entry that records one and only one transaction. Being the sales journal, what type of transaction do you think it records? What type of sales? Credit sales only. So the sales day book records only credit sales. And then, of course, after, we know we have a sales journal and a sales account. And in the sales account, you'd have the total for all the credit sales as well as the cash sales, right? Now, it says it had been undercast. What does undercast mean? Too high or too low? Too low. So the figure in the sales journal, the credit sales figure, is too low, which ultimately means when you transfer that figure to the sales account, it's going to also be undercast there by 4,100, all right? Now, like I was saying, so the sales day book being undercast leads to the sales account also being undercast. Undercast means too low. If something is too low, how do we fix it? Increase, decrease, or nothing? Increase. Now, sales is a revenue account. Revenue accounts increase with credits. So to increase the sales account, you're going to have to credit the sales account. Right? Now, here the thing, right? As we know with double entry, every credit needs what? A corresponding debit. Okay. Now, was there another account affected by this error? No. Right? Well, right, yes. So there was no other account affected by this error. In the previous example we did, when there was no other account affected or it was a one-sided error, what account did we use to facilitate double entry? The suspense account. So if we have a one-sided error and in fixing it, we have a credit to the account where the error is, the debit will go to suspense. All right? Give me a couple of seconds for that to kind of sink in. I'm going to just check something here real quick. Yeah. Okay, as the first piece. The next piece says, sorry, yeah, go ahead. Right. So the sales day book was undercast. That means that the figure was too low, right? The sales day book is the book of original entry that records credit sales and credit sales only. And then at the end of whatever period of time, we transfer that total of credit sales to the sales account in the general ledger. So what's going to happen is if the sales journal is undercast, it means that ultimately the sales account is also going to be undercast. right? And once again, undercast, sorry, means that it's too low. If something is too low, then to fix that issue, we have to increase the value, right? We have to increase the balance in the sales account. Now, sales itself is a revenue account, and the double entry rules for revenues are credit to increase, debit to decrease, right? All right. To answer the question, narrations, yeah, we'll do narrations, don't worry. Yeah, right. So yeah, so to increase the balance in the sales account, you'll credit the sales account. Further, because there was no other account affected by the error, there was no other account affected by this particular item here. In order to fully correct the error, right? Because remember, you can't just have a random credit floated in space. You need a debit as well. And because there was no other account affected, we use the suspense account to facilitate the double entry. Right? So you're able to correct sales Philip being undercast by 4,100. Right? Okay. Next one says a check paying 3,500 to B. Ashton was entered in the cash book, but not in the personal account. Okay. So if we are paying a check to B. Ashton and you follow your double entry hack, credit where it's coming from, debit where it's going, right? So money's coming from bank and going to pay B. Ashton, right? So your credit where it's coming from, bank or cash book, and it's supposed to debit B. Ashton. What does it say here? It was entered in the cash book, but what? Not in the personal account. So we didn't enter it in B. Ashton's account. So we credited where it came from, cash book, but we didn't debit where it went. We didn't debit B. Ashton. So how do we fix that? By debiting B. Ashton. All right, so 3,500. Now again, it was a one-sided error. We did record the credit to cash book. We didn't record the debit to B. Ashton. So when we do eventually debit B. Ashton, we have to use the suspense account to facilitate the error, the double entry to correct the error, right? And then to correct an omitted debit to B. Ashton. Ashton, thanks. All right, okay, so let me pause there for a second. All right, so in class, people, how are we feeling with these two errors thus far? Any questions, anybody, anything, any problems, issues, concerns, or are we okay? Okay? Okay. All right, Google Meet, you know the drill. If you guys are good with these first two, give me a quick G in the chat. If you need me to re-explain either or both of them, please let me know. Give me an R and let me know specifically how you like me to help. I'll be happy to do so. I was right, so I see Matthias, Ayaz, and G done. What's the Korean mood? So, how are you feeling about that? Any questions, problems, issues? If you have it, now is the time to ask, eh? After we know what errors today, that is it. And anyone, please, who needs to can just always message me directly on WhatsApp, right? You go over bad debts. I think I did that already. Sorry. You can check out my channel. I have provision for bad debts there. Might be helpful. Not much to do. You debit bad debts and you credit the debtor. Okay, let's proceed. All right, so we have, let's see, a third error. Right, and then we'll do freeze the payments. Yeah, So let's scroll down a little bit. Let's give ourselves a little more room. Right. So third item, inventory at close was undervalued by $3,900. So inventory at close is inventory at end, ending inventory, closing stock, whatever, right? Undervalued means what? Was it valued too low or too high? Too low. It's under. So how do we fix something if it's too low? Do we increase, decrease, or nothing? Increase. So we had to increase stock. Sorry, one second, one column. Mom? Yeah, no, did not do that. Sorry. No. Yeah, nah. Yeah, sorry. Uh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Somewhere. All right. I'll take a look and see if I find it. Yeah. No, 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 no. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't drive and do that. I must say 2 weeks. Yeah. But don't drive and do that. On. Okay. Anyhow. Okay, cool. Yeah. Right. Um, so I'll make a quick note. Right. Sorry. So yeah, inventory at close is undervalued. So undervalued means it's too low. To fix that, we have to increase it. How do we classify inventory? Inventory is an asset. How do we, if it's undervalued and we have to increase it, how do we increase an asset with a debit or a credit? AID, assets increase with debit. Very good. So we'll debit inventory. Please don't go in the exam and write that. Right, don't do that for CSEC, please. Right, by how much is it undervalued? 3,900. So we'll put that figure. Now, this error only affected the inventory account. When we have errors that only affect one account, we need the suspense account to facilitate the double entry to correct the error. So if we debited inventory, we're going to credit suspense account. Right, and this is to correct the undercast. Correct? Yeah, undercast inventory. Right? There's no one correct narration. It could be phrased differently to me and have the same meaning. The fourth and final error in this question was discount received 4,125 from a supplier was not posted to the supplier's account. Okay. All right. So discount received itself as a revenue. When we earn a revenue, we credit the revenue account. So when we received this discount, we would have credited discount received. Cool. And of course, every credit would need a corresponding debit. And the debit would go to the supplier's account. Right. So it would go to the supplier's account. But we didn't. So we didn't debit the supplier's account. So we are missing a debit to supplier. Supplier. They didn't give us a name, right? We could put accounts payable, we could put creditor, we could put supplier, right? And the amount is 41.25. Now again, this was a one-sided error, right? Now it says that the discount was not posted to the supplier's account. So we could assume that it was posted to the discount received account. Because if it wasn't, then they would say that the entry was totally omitted. All right, but that's not what happened here. We simply entered a credit with no debit. So to fix that, we have to put the debit where it should have gone. But again, with double entry, every debit needs a corresponding credit. So because there was no other account affected by the error, we use the suspense account to facilitate the error correction double entry. Right, so to correct omitted debit to supplier. All right, so what I want to do, I'm going to maximize this page now. I'm going to take off the split and I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see everything. Well, everything so far. We still have a couple things to do. All right. Okay. In class, people, are we okay? Now, I asked already for the first two. So are you all okay with the second two entries? Any questions? Anybody? Anything about why we debited or credited, whatever the case is? Okay. All right. Okay. So Google Meet, you guys know the drill. If you guys are good with those two entries, just give me a quick G in the chat, please and thanks. All right. If you need me to re-explain anything, give me your R and tell me which one. If it's item 3 or item 4, whatever. If you have any questions, comments, queries, right? Right. Okay, thanks. Okay, now we're not done because the question itself, they wanted us to write up the correction of the errors via the journal, but they actually wanted us to show the suspense account showing the correction of errors. So how do we do that? How do we show a suspense account? Okay, so first things first. What did they tell us in the question? That the trial balance was short on the debit side. So that means the suspense account is going to have a debit balance. Right? And they gave us 74.25. And once again, I created this as a bit of a mock-up. Right? This wasn't given to us by the question. I just put some simple figures so we could see that the trial balance didn't balance, and that to make it balance, we have to put in a suspense account figure in the column that had the lower total. Right? So this would say difference as per trial balance, difference as per so TB is trial balance, right? Okay, so what we do now is we go through the journal entries and see which of these affected the suspense account. Now, as luck would have it, they all did. We have actually 3 credits to suspense account and 1 additional debit. So let's put them in. So the only debit to suspense account apart from the opening balance is a figure of 4,100, right? And that was from the sales account. Now, the other 3 all go on the credit side. So we have 3,500, and that was the entry with B Ashton, right? Then we have what? We have 3,900, and that was the entry with inventory. And then we have 41.25, which is the entry with the supplier. Now, after we make those entries, we simply total up both columns. What do we notice about the total in both columns right away? They're both equal, right? So when we do that, what that means is that most likely we've corrected all of the errors that have given us this, that caused the trial balance not to agree, right? So if you ever do up a suspense account and you still need to balance it with a balance, either something went wrong with your working the question, right? Or the arithmetic. So check it again. All right. Yeah. Yeah, no problems. Right. So let's just pull this up here real quick. What in the suspense account or in the journal entries? Right. Okay. So all right. So in the first one, sales daybook had been undercast. Undercast means too low, which means to fix that error, we have to increase the sales account. Sales is a revenue. To increase a revenue account, you have to credit. So you're going to credit the sales account, but it's a one-sided error. It was an arithmetic error that affected only one account. So when we make the correcting credit here, we need a debit because that's the rules of double entry. And we'll use the suspense account to facilitate that. Because what would have happened is all of these errors, 1 to 4, would have caused our trial balance to be off by 74.25, right? So now, when we correct the error in the sales account, we also put a debit in suspense, right? Because it's a one-sided error, right? So to fix the error, we credited sales, but every credit needs a debit. Because there was no other account affected by this error, we use the suspense account as the account of debit, all right? The check to B Ashton was entered in cash book, but not in B Ashton's account. Okay, cool. So if we pay somebody, we'll credit the cash book and debit them. But it says we entered it in the cash book, which means the credit was put in, but the debit was not, because they told us that it was not entered in the personal account. So we're missing a debit. How do we fix that? Well, we debit the account that was supposed to be debited, but every debit needs a corresponding credit. So when you debit B Ashton to fix the error, the suspense account will facilitate double entry, right? Item 3, inventory at close was undervalued by 3,900. Okay, undervalued means it was too low. To fix that, we have to increase it. So inventory is classified as an asset. To increase an asset value, you have to debit the asset account. And again, because it was just undervalued, it's sounds like a calculation error. When we debit it, right? Sorry, because it's a one-sided error, there's no other account affected, which means we will therefore use the suspense account to facilitate the double entry. Right? So the debit inventory would fix the inventory problem, but we need a credit for every debit. And the suspense account fulfills that role. All right? And the last one, so the discount received from a supplier was not posted to the supplier's account. So when you receive discount, you'll credit discount. Tammy. General ledger, you could, but usually actually general journal. Yeah. So we would have credited discount received. And if you do a credit, you have to debit, right? So the debit was supposed to go to the supplier, but what did I say? It was not posted to the supplier's account, right? So if the debit wasn't posted, then what we have to do? We got to post it. But you can't just randomly debit an account. Every debit needs a credit. So that's where the suspense account comes in here. Right? So once again, this was also a one-sided error. So we'll need the suspense account. Right? Now, after we make all the correcting entries, what we do is we open the suspense account and we put in the initial balance as per the trial balance, right? So this account, this balance here, went here on the debit side. Yeah? Right. So here now, you're seeing we have a debit to suspense. So you're going to put the 4,100 there, and the other account affected by the correction was sales. So that's why we labeled it sales. Right? And then for the other three, for this one, and this one, they were all credits. So you put them on the credit side, and for each of the entries, you put the name of the other account affected. Right? And then after that, when you add up each column, it's supposed to balance. Right. What's coming? I don't know. Yeah, Pog. We could do our best guess. But I have no predictions. No rhyme or reason to what they bring. So, Marlon, what I will tell you, know as many topics as possible. Okay, cool. All right, so ladies and gents, let's check in one more time. Anybody in class have any questions on the item on the screen currently? No? All right, cool. Google Meet, just give me a quick G if you're good with what's on the screen currently, specifically the suspense account. If you need me to re-explain that, there's not a problem, let me know, right? Okay, so what I want to do, I actually want to give you guys one to try. The printer aggravator muscle. This one a little actually I could zoom in here. More. All right. So for those who might be curious, this is 2010 January question, right? So it says the trial balance. Hold on, just now. Let me check something real quick. 10, 4. Okay, hold on. Let me see if maybe doing Westernly might be a bit easier. Steven. All right, okay, here what? Actually want you to try this one instead. That's a little too big, that doesn't make sense. So let's do 180. All right, so 180 fits, right? So I'm not gonna bother to try and print it out. So what is TB? Trial balance. TB is trial balance then, right? What time do I come live? Oh, hold on, this is my brother calling. Hello? Right? Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Hey guys, sorry. Right. Okay, Abigail, but the rest of the week, 10 to 12 and 1 to 3. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then Monday, hopefully from 1 o'clock, if not by 4 o'clock. Right. Okay, let's just take a quick read here, guys. So, yeah. Oh. Okay. Okay. Could be this with a current approving. Diamond current accounts and appropriation accounts is a partnership. So go on my channel, look for partnership accounts. We're doing suspense accounts now, actually. A suspense account is simply an account that we use to help a trial balance when it doesn't. Right? So the question told us that the trial balance had a shortage of 74.25 on the debit side. So the suspense account simply is used to make the trial balance. Right? But current and appropriation account, that's partnership. So you're going to want to go on my channel and check that out. All right, guys. So we're going to be taking a look at Weston Lee. All right, so let's put that back up on the screen. Right, Weston Lee found the following errors in his books on Jan 20th, 2002, after preparing his final accounts. So purchases was overcast, sales undercast, rent overcast, electricity was undercast, telephone was overcast. So they want the journal entries to correct each error, and then they want the suspense account, right? But here the trick, they didn't give you a suspense account balance, but I'll give it to you, all right? Sorry, what did I do there? Second, guys. Sorry. Yeah, let me tell you what the figure was for. Okay, I'll put it in a little text box here. Boom. Right. Okay, yeah. So the trial balance had a shortage of 20,800 on the credit side. Right. So what I want you guys to do, please, is I want you guys to try this question. Right. So we have, hold on, we have 5 errors, right? Let's just take a quick read, right? So purchases was overcast. What does overcast mean? Too high. How do we fix something if it's too high? Increase, decrease, or nothing? Decrease, right? Now, purchases is an expense, right? Expenses. So just like AID, expenses also ID. So aid and I guess EID. Expenses also increase with debits. So if we want to decrease the expense, we have to do the opposite of debiting. What's the opposite of debiting? Huh? Good, right. True. That is correct. Online and in IRL. Yeah. Right. So in this case, we would credit purchases, and of course, what account would we use to facilitate double entry? Suspense. Right. Now, just by the way, all of these will require suspense accounts. All right. Next, sales were undercast by 14. What does undercast mean? Too low or not enough. How do we fix something if it's too low? Increase, decrease, or nothing? Increase. Now, sales is a revenue, and revenues increase with credits. So we'll have to credit sales here and debit suspense. Right? Next, rent was overcast by 2,000. So rent is also an expense. Just like purchases is overcast, right? So if it's overcast, that means it is too high. To fix it, we have to bring it back down. And EID, expenses increase with debits. So if the expense increases with debits and we want to decrease it, we'll have to use a credit. So you credit, rent, and debit, suspense. All right, so I'll let you all try to figure out the last one here is the same as rent and purchase, but the electricity is a different one. It's like the opposite. Anyhow, so you all, I'll give you all a few minutes to try because you had to try. I can't just show you all everything. I had to try it. So while you're doing that, it says 2004 May. It's quite an old question relative to you. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Increase. Sorry, Abigail. Which figure? Yeah, I'm not seeing the comments. My bad. Can't hear. I wasn't talking just yet. So, Maybe a minute or two again. In a minute or two again, are you all ready? Two again? That's fine. Just checking. Just on the mom here and just making sure I have enough time to do it. It shouldn't take long. Thought I heard a notification for the question there. All right, guys, I want to starting here, right? So we're going to go here. Right, so I think that's everything we got to see. So we'll do the general journal entries first, right? And we'll. All right, so let's zoom out a little bit. I think 250 something is a little much. All right. Now it's no narration. Okay, so we could leave the narrations for now. Okay, purchases were overcast. Overcast means it was too high. To fix it, we have to bring it back down. Purchases is an expense, and EID, expenses, increase with debits. So if they increase with debits, they will decrease with credits. So what we want to do here is we want to credit purchases. Again, because it was a one-sided error, what is the other account we use here? Suspense account. Sorry. Right. Same 6,000. Right. Next, we have sales being undercast. So undercast means it is too what? Too low. If it's too low, to fix it, we have to do what? Increase it. Sales is a revenue. To increase a revenue, you have to credit. Okay, so you're going to credit sales for how much? 14,000. And of course, it's a one-sided error. So we have to therefore debit the suspense account. Okay, so quick question. In class, people, are we okay with the first two corrections? Any problems? Anybody? Anything? Any questions? All right, so Google Meet. All right, so Ayaz, Jaden, Matthias, Sequoia Moon, if you guys are good with that, give me a quick G in the chat, please, and thanks. If you need me to re-explain anything, everything, give me a R, let me know how I can help you. All right, okay, cool. All right, next two one time. Rent was overcast. So overcast means it was too high. It's an expense. It's an expense. So to reduce the expense, we have to credit. So rent expense account. I have to bring it down by 2,000. Right. And of course, it's a one-sided error, so we're going to use the suspense account. Suspense account to facilitate the correction. Nice. Okay. Item 4, electricity was undercast. So undercast means it was too low. So therefore, to fix it, we have to increase it. To increase an expense, you have to debit the expense. Sorry. Right, by 3,000. Again, this was a one-sided error, so we're going to use the suspense account. Oh my God. Right, to facilitate the double entry. I'll just do the fifth one real quick. Right, okay, and the fifth one was telephone was overcast. So we have a third expense being overcast. So we know that to correct something being overcast, we have to decrease it. Because it is an expense, we will credit the expense account to effect the decrease, right? That's how much? 1,800. And of course, because it's a one-sided error, we have to use the suspense account to facilitate that. So suspense account. All right. Okay, in class, people, are we okay with the entries to correct? Yeah? Okay. Google Meet, if you guys are good with that, give me a quick G in the chat, as in the last three items, right? Fees and tax. Of course, in the re-explain, that's not a problem. Let me know. Right. Okay, so 3 out of 4. Next one, let me know when you get a chance, right? Okay. Now, let's organize the suspense account. Now, the question said we had a $20,800 shortage on the credit side of the trial balance. So that means in the suspense account, you'll also have a $20,800 balance on the credit side. The difference as per trial balance. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 out of the 5 items requiring a debit to suspense. So let's put them in. So 6,000, 14,000, 2,000, and then 1,800. Right? This goes to purchases. This goes to sales. This goes to rent expense. And the last one is telephone expense. Right. And then the only one kind of on the other side is this one here, right? The 3,000, and that's for electricity expense. Electricity expense. Okay, and all we have to do now is add up the columns and see if they get the same. Do we get the same thing? Yes, we do. The total on the debit side is equal to the total on the credit side, and we have reconciled the balance. Okay, so that was 2004, Western Lee. Right, now we do have something else to add on, but we're not going to do that just yet. We'll probably do that in the after lunch class. Right, the correction of net profit. Right, for now, we'll just kind of continue with journal entries and suspense accounts. Okay, in class, people, are we okay with the suspense account as shown there? Any problems, questions, anybody, anything? All right. Google Meet, the drill. So Ayaz, Jordan, Matthias, and Sequoia Moon, if you guys are good with the suspense account, please let me know. If you have any questions, that's perfectly fine too. Go how different. Oh, the question has to tell you. Yeah, Abigail. Suspense account again. All right. So, Tammy, are you okay with the journal entries? How we corrected the errors? Right. Okay, cool. So what we're seeing here is in the journal entries, we have a debit. We have in the first one, we have the debit suspense, right? In the second one, too. In the third one, and the fifth one. So in the suspense account, now the question told us at the outset that we have a credit balance in the suspense account. So you're going to start off your suspense account with the credit balance, right? Now the four debits, right, will simply be put on the debit side. So you're going to put 6,000, 14,000, 2,000, 1,800 on the debit side because it's set to debit suspense. The details here will be the other accounts affected by the journal entry, right? And of course, there's just one credit of 3,000 that goes here. And all you have to do is add each column and you should get the same total without having to do any additional. That's basically it. So hope that helps, Abigail. All right, folks. So just a double checking. We good with this one? Yeah? All right, cool. Okay, so we're going to backtrack a little bit to do our name. Steven? Nah, not Steven. Do Steven later. Beck Hammond. Right, okay. So we're going to go in. Really? Right. Okay. So this one, can I go in a bit more, boy? That's a little too close now. That might be a little too big. Just fit, boy. Okay. You know what? That'll work. That'll work. All right. So the trial balance. So just by the way, this is May 20. Sorry, not May. This is Jan 2010. Right? Jan 2010. So the trial balance of Beck Hammond showed that the credit totals were greater than the debit totals by 2570. So if the credit totals were greater than the debit totals, it means the debit side is lower, not so? And if it says 2570, that means that that's the suspense account balance. So this item here, 2570, don't highlight that, right? Sorry. The 2570 is the suspense account balance. And if the credit totals were greater than the debit totals, that means the opposite as well. The debit totals were less. And it's always the side of the trial balance that has a lower total that has the suspense account. So what they're telling you here in that first sentence is that, hey, Beck Hammond's trial balance has a suspense account with a debit balance. Right? Don't worry, net profit. We'll come back to net profit just now, right? Okay, Abigail, that's great. Happy to help. Right. So we have a purchase of furniture, 1,500 had been debited to the purchases account. Now tell me something. The purchases account is used to record purchases, but of what item specifically? Only inventory or stock, right? Is furniture usually inventory or stock? I mean, maybe if your courts or standards or American stores, fine. But generally speaking, if a regular company that doesn't sell furniture buys furniture, that's going to be what? A non-current asset, right? So when you buy a non-current asset like furniture or equipment or machinery, you're supposed to debit what account? The asset account. So we were supposed to debit furniture, right? But instead of debiting furniture, we debited purchases. So in this particular error here, how do we fix that? Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me just. Right, give me 1 sec. I'll pull up the question, the solution. All right, so just in case anybody wants to kind of see what they're talking about here with the trial balance, I'm gonna do like a bit of a mock-up, right? It's again not gonna be just what? Yeah, it's just gonna be like an estimate of what it looks like. Okay, if my sheet would reappear, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Right. So right. So the credit totals were greater by 20. Okay, so let's say this was 10,000. This is 12,570. Right. So again, I'm just making up figures to facilitate showing that the credit side is greater than the debit side by 2,570. So therefore, we'll need a 2,570 here. Now, this is not something you have to write out, right? This is just me being illustrative as to what that first sentence is telling us. Right, cool. Right, okay. So now let's jump back into the errors, right? So we have a purchase of furniture for 1,500 have been debited to purchase. Okay, so the debit was supposed to go to furniture, but it went to purchases. Right. So yeah, right. So how do we undo a debit to any account? Your credit. So the credit purchases here. Where was the debit supposed to go? To furniture. All right. Now, please notice in that particular error, the suspense account was not necessary. All right. So they could, that's what they could do. They could mix up the questions that require you to use suspense with the errors that require you to use the suspense account with errors that do not require you to use suspense account. All right. Okay. Next, a payment of 2,000 by check had been made by a customer, Ronaldinho, whose account was correctly credited, but the amount was entered in the bank account as 200. Okay. If somebody paid us 2,000 by check, are we getting money or are we paying money? We're getting money. So when we get money, if you follow the double entry hack, credit where it's coming from, debit where it's going, right? So who's paying the money? Where's it coming from? From Ronaldinho, right? So you credit Ronald's account. And where's it going? It's supposed to go to bank. So you're supposed to debit bank. And that's what they said. Ronald's account was correctly credited, but the amount was entered in bank as 200. And if we credit in Ronald, we have to therefore do what the bank? Debit. Now tell me something. We debited bank for 200 and the correct amount was supposed to be 2,000. So the entry that was put was understated, which means it was too low. How do we fix something if it's too low or understated? We have to increase it, right? And again, because this was a debit, you're gonna have to debit, but for how much? 1,800. The difference between the 2,000 and the 200. All right. All right. So you're gonna, and in this question, it was a one-sided error, right? We debited bank 200 but credited Ronald's account for 2,000. Right? The 2,000 to Ronald was correct, but the debit of 200 to bank was incorrect. So you're going to again have to debit bank for 1,800 to make up the shortfall. And because it's a one-sided error, what other account do we use to facilitate the correction? Suspense, right? Now, next, a discount allowed to Fergie, 256, was debited to discount allowed as 236. All right. So for this one, we use the correct figure? It says what was the amount here? 256. Was the amount here? 236. Right? And when you give discount allowed, you will debit discount allowed and credit the debtor. So we did debit discount allowed, but we debited it for what? 236 instead of 256. So we use a figure that was what? Too big or too small? Too small. By how much? 20. Right? So if we debited discount allowed for 236, which was short by 20 or undercast by 20, we have to therefore go back and debit it for that missing 20. And again, because it's a one-sided error, guess what account was also used? Suspense. Hi, sir, how can I get a 1 in PoA? Do the multiple choice, get as many marks as possible. Do the paper 2, get as many marks as possible. Submit to SBA, get as many marks as possible. Okay. Well, I mean, and hope that the marks you get meet CXC satisfaction for whatever our 1 is, because we don't know what a 1 is. Right? Okay, next. Goods with a value of 3,700. Yeah, well, you have to keep practicing, right? The understanding will come with the practice. Well, and of course, proper explanation. But it's good that you know your formats and your theory. That's important. Right, goods with a value of 3,700 sold to Russell Smith had been debited to Dwight Smith's account. So if we sold goods to Russell, we were supposed to debit Russell. Did we debit Russell? No, we debited Dwight. So we have a missing debit to Russell and a debit to Dwight that shouldn't be there. So how do we get rid of a debit that shouldn't be there? By crediting. So we're supposed to credit Dwight because we put in Dwight's account, but it's not supposed to be there. But where was it supposed to go? Russell, as a debit, which we didn't put. So how do we fix that? By debiting it. So you're going to have to debit Russell and credit Dwight. And then a check for $375 drawn on behalf of Terry Henry, had been credited to his account. Okay, when we draw a check on behalf of somebody, it means we are paying that person with the check. Now, if you follow your double entry hack of credit where it's coming from and debit where it's going, yeah, Kareem, what's up? Wait. Yeah. What's that? Oh, a standing order. Right. Yeah. So if we pay somebody some money, you'll credit bank because money's coming from bank, and you'll debit them because that's where the money's going, right? So you'll credit bank and debit Terry Henry. But look what happened here. Did we debit Terry Henry? It said it had been credited to his account. Were we supposed to credit Terry or debit Terry? Debit Terry. So what happened here? We actually have two credits in this transaction. One to bank and one to Terry. But we know that Terry was supposed to be debited. So we have two things to do here. One, we have to eliminate the incorrect credit to Terry. How do we eliminate a credit? By debiting. And we don't have to put in the debit that we should have, we have to put in the debit that we should have put into Terry's account in the first place. So we have two debits to Terry, which you could combine into one with double the figure. But then after you put that in Terry's account, what other was any other account affected? No. So in that last transaction, we have to use suspense, right? So in item 1 and 4, we're not using suspense. In items 2, 3, and 5, we're using suspense, right? Now, so what I would suggest, just by the way, I'd suggest you do your journal entries first and then the suspense account. Right? So it's 10 to 12. So here I'll give you, we could go a little past 12 if anything, right? Because anybody leaving at 12? Everybody here? Okay, cool. So what we'll do, we'll go a little past 12 to make sure you kind of get back the time that I started late. So we'll go to about quarter past, no problem. We'll have a slightly shorter lunch, obviously, right? But if anybody had to order food, now is a good time to do so, yeah? I ordered mine already, but I have no clue when it'll reach. I ordered from a place called Google. Some place in Starlight in the back, something simple gourmet, simply gourmet. I just ordered a chicken sandwich for myself and a salad for my wife. I'll walk it across when it come. Hopefully it'll come on time. Oh, draft journal entries. Yeah, you could you guys could omit the narrations for now. I'll put them in, right? So just sorry. So if they don't mention any more narratives, right? So if they don't mention what to do with narratives, then put them in. Yeah. Well, it's actually the counterpoint. I'm not sure how to pronounce VAYXZ. Let's just say V. All right. Kiana. PO will be live 10 o'clock to 12 and 1 to 3 for the rest of the week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, we might do like a 4 to 8 o'clock. Anyhow, yeah. Bianca, what I would suggest is let them tell you not to put it. Right? When they ask for journal entries, a narrative is part of a journal entry, understood as part of it. So unless they say specifically narrative is not required, then put them in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw a TikTok comment on that too. Yeah. Mm. I'm glad people getting something that they could use and understand. Serious. Yeah. What's it? My mom calling. Hey, mom. Oh, nice. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Yeah, no, sorry. Oh, okay, okay. Mm. Okay, thanks. Hmm. Yeah, I think right after all they're done, I'm gonna attack to see how much phone calls I could get, and I might actually call school names, especially yours. I couldn't teach your name, forget that. But school names, yeah. No, 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 no. I rather not make enemies. I might even make enemies if I call school names because I'll just say a certain girls growing Savannah with a white shirt, but that could be about 3 or 4 different schools, yeah. Because Bishops, Providence have white with stripes, and then it have Saint Francois. Why would you do that? Just all right. Okay, I guess yeah. Yeah, I have boundaries. I can't afford to have having boundaries. Hey, and baby. Oh wait, I tried to tag it. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. And the follow. Okay, cool. I think was I supposed to get some information on it? Was the advanced paper? I think I had one. But either one of them, I don't think I had message Andre. I think I'd forget. Can I from now? I'm really curious. The mock exam. That's why I want to see it. I want to see what came. No, she got 59. So she was feeling very good about that, and I was happy too. Yeah. Yeah. So we shall see. There's no admath or econ or IT in Jan. Yeah. There's only once a year you could sit that CSEC wise. I know there are some upcoming changes where you could like the CSEC subjects, you could sit them in 3 pieces. Like do 3 separate exams, I think. And then keep 2. And if you pass all 3, then you get the grade for that one thing. Then I'll come down. I'll push this down. Then yo. Yeah, they're footballers from back in the day. Beckham on is Beckham. Ronaldinho. Alex Ferguson was Manchester's coach, right? Dwight Smith is a combination of Dwight York and Russell Latterby. So it's Dwight York and Russell Latterby. Russell wasn't on that team, but Russell was instrumental in Trinidad. And then Thierry Henry, yeah. Yeah, so clearly somebody was a football fan and had this some little what you call it inkling of creativity. I can appreciate that. I myself like some weird names. Anyhow, let me go. So we just do need journal entries, right? Let's actually pull this up because we don't have to see more than one error at a time. Okay, so a purchase of furniture had been debited to the purchases account. Okay, cool. So you all want to see the T accounts just to have it illustrated, or you all just want to go journal entries? You know? Okay, right. So we debited purchases instead of furniture. So to fix that, we're missing a debit to furniture, so we have to put it in. Debit to furniture, 1,500, and we have a debit to purchases that should not be there. How do we undo that? By crediting it. Purchases. Right. Right. Skip a line and come back to that. Right. Okay. Cool. Hold on. Did I do narratives with this? I did. Okay. Cool. All right. Right. So let's forget narratives for now. Okay. Right. Next item. A payment of 2,000 by check had been made by the customer whose account was correctly credited, but the amount was entered in bank as 200. Right. So if a payment by customer, right? So we got money. So we were supposed to debit bank. We did debit bank for 200, but it should have been 2,000. So the shortfall there is how much? 1,800, right? So debit bank for 1,800. And again, because in this case, it's a one-sided error. So suspense account will be necessary. Suspense. Sorry. Right. Okay, so I just checking on for the first two errors. How we feeling with the first two corrections there? We all right? Okay, Google Meet, the drill. So, Jaden, Matthias, Ayaz. Go ahead, move on. All right, cool. Okay, okay, cool. Right. Next item. A discount allowed to Fergie had been yeah. A discount allowed to Fergie was debited to discount allowed as 230. Okay, so we were supposed to debit for 256. So the debit is short. It's understated or undercast. So we have to debit discount allowed. Just now, I have to fix the indent there. So that was where our credit was. So that's $20, right? And suspense 20, right? Okay, cool. Next item, goods with a value of 3,700 sold to Russell had been debited to Dwight. Okay, so if we sell to Russell on credit, we're supposed to debit Russell. And BB, correct, yes, 20 is correct. But we debited Dwight. So we're missing a debit to Russell, and we have a debit to Dwight that shouldn't be there. So if we have a missing debit, how do we fix that? We put it in. So we're supposed to debit Russell. Right, that's 3,700. And we have a credit that shouldn't, sorry, a debit that shouldn't exist. So to cancel it or counterbalance it, we have to credit the account. Okay, these two. In class, people, are we okay with the third and fourth journal entries to correct the errors? Any questions? Anybody? Anything? No? All right. Google Meet. No, I just asked, but I'm asking for two at a time just to make sure we stay on top of things and not wait too long to correct anybody. So if you guys are good with those two, give me a quick G, please. Right, Matthias, let me know, right, when you get a chance. Right, last one is a check for 375 drawn on behalf of Terry Henry had been credited to his account. Okay, so if we draw a check and pay Terry Henry, we're supposed to debit him and credit bank. But it says we credited his account. Now, they didn't say that we debited bank, eh? Oh, Tammy. Oh, okay, no worries. Now, basically what they're saying here is that when we entered this transaction, we actually credited both accounts, right? So we credited Terry and bank. So we were supposed to debit Terry. So we have a credit by Terry that shouldn't be there, and we're missing a debit. So what we had to do here is debit to cancel the incorrect credit, and debit again to put in the credit that should have been there. How do you count balance in PoA? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Karen. Yeah, count balance. I don't know. Do you You mean balance of an account? Right. Okay. So we have to debit Terry Henry. Right. Twice. Right. Why? So once to cancel the debit, the credit that was made that shouldn't be made, and once to enter the debit that should have been put in the first place. All right. That's suspense account. All right. How do you counterbalance? Go on the opposite side of the account. That's what I'm going to say. Right. So if you have, okay, like in this one, when we draw a check on behalf of Terry Henry, we're supposed to credit bank because money's coming from bank, and we were supposed to debit Terry Henry, but we didn't. It says it was credited to Terry's account. So we have a credit here that shouldn't exist, right? So to cancel this or counterbalance it, you go on the opposite side, right? Every T account has two different sides, a debit side and a credit side, and they work against each other. An entry on this side is literally against the entry on that side, and vice versa. So the debit that was supposed to go here is missing, and we have a credit that shouldn't be there. So how do we fix that? Well, one, we're gonna cancel this credit with a debit, right? That's what I mean by counterbalance. Right. And then we also have to enter the debit that should have been entered in the first place. Right. And then we have two debits here. So the suspense account will get a single credit. Right. So Terry Henry. Right. So we're going to debit Terry for $750 and credit back for suspense, sorry, for $750. Okay. Right. There you go. All right. Karen, hope that's okay. Lovely. Okay, so now we have the suspense account to do up, right? So whole train. All right, sorry. I don't know why it's giving me trouble, right? So I'm just trying to zoom in on the account. That's all. Stop it. All right. Okay. All right. First of all, let's go back to the question real quick. What did it tell us about the suspense account balance? It's 2570. The credit totals were greater than the debit by 2570. So if the credit totals were greater than the debit totals, it means the debit side is shorter, is smaller, and needs the suspense account to make it balance, right? So the suspense account currently has a debit balance, right? So that's the difference as per trial balance. Right, now let's go to the entries here and see which ones. Sorry, what was the 1800 again? Bank? Right, okay, so here we have items. Now the first one didn't affect the trial balance. The second one did, the third one did, and the fifth one. All right, cool. So we have three entries. We have three credits to suspense. Right? Was the other one? Right. So the okay, well, I guess we could all right, so let's start from the top. So the first one is 1800, right? That's to hold on one sec. Hello, good afternoon. Hi. Oh, it's food drop. Okay, is the first house on the right hand side? So just if you could just come back by the small gate, I'll come out here right now. Thank you. Okay, I just have to collect some food outside. Yeah, Diamond, that's correct. Right, and the other one is to discount allowed. That's 20. Right, and look what happens when you add up these sides now. They are equal. All right, guys, I'm gonna just collect this food real fast. You know, mom's outside. Yeah. She said she's just going home and coming back. Want to talk to her? Right, yeah. Okay, right. So folks, that's the solution for the suspense account for backgammon, right? What we'll do, we'll take a break now for lunch. And we'll start back. I'll aim to start back 12:45-ish, 12:50-ish, right? So worst case scenario, we'll start 1 o'clock. All right, when we start back after lunch, we're gonna go through a couple more questions like this, but we're gonna aim to also look out the correct net profit. All right, so Google Meet, I'll go on for now. See you in about 45 minutes. All right. What country is he from? Trinidad. Yeah, check. So guys, check me back about 1 o'clock.